When we last left off, we made our first interface bits here. We've got a little coin counter, a little HP counter, and we've got a button to reset. But the level we have still kind of sucks, right? We only have one straight bit here. We can walk left and right, we can jump, obviously, and that's it. So we're going to make a couple more adjustments to this level. We've already talked about being able to go into brush editing mode here and use that to change up your levels a little bit. So we can say extrude here. And then when we extrude this, we can make a new face. And then going back into edit mode, we can make a little bit of a ramp here, going back into extrude mode. And we can just keep going like this as long as we want to, and this still isn't all too interesting, right? So now if we go back into select mode, we can copy this entire box brush over. Going back into the outline here, you will see there's a second box brush now, and we can move that along the Y axis a little bit here, and we'll see that now we have created a jump. But still, this is all very static. We want a moving platform. So after we've done this entire thing twice, we can maybe go into this and say brush editing, and maybe say that we want to, instead of going up, we want to go down here. So the best way to do that is changing your perspective to top perspective and finding the actor that you were working on. The reason we go to top perspective is that it's easier to do this with a box, click and drag, and then when we go back into perspective mode, we have these points here selected and can drag them all down. And now suddenly this is a very different shape, and we can maybe put some enemies on here at some points, but for the time being, we're going to add in some moving platforms. So going back into selecting mode here, we can go into place actors, and under shapes, let's just put in a cube for the time being. Let's make it a little bit bigger. This seems about right, and we're going to make this cube move back and forth. Just very easy, but once you understand how to make it move from left to right, you can make it move in so many different ways, and it's going to be a lot of fun to play around with. So we're going to go into our content browser, and we're going to make yet a new folder. Again, folders not really necessary, but you want to really keep your work tidy. And make the folder called sequences. And inside that folder, we're going to make a new animation level sequence. And we'll call this block movement. We'll drag that into the level itself here. You can drag it anywhere into the level. Generally, it's good to put these things at the location of where the objects it's going to interact with are located. So in this case, we have the level sequence on top of this cube over here. Now, if we double click this, we'll get a timeline. And in this timeline, we can start adding actors. So we can say add a track, actor to sequence, and then we can choose whichever actor we want. But we can also, with the outliner open, just drag and drop an actor from there into here. And now we have that added to this sequencer. So we've got by default some transform information, location, rotation, scale. We're going to only worry about the location here. More specifically, it's only going to be the Y location. So you're going to press on this button over here, which adds a new keyframe. If you've done anything with video editing or motion graphics or that kind of stuff before, you'll know all about keyframes. If not, it's really not that complicated. So we've got a keyframe at frame 0, right? So if we then set our playhead at frame 120, and we move the block over here and make a new keyframe there as well, you will see that every frame in between frame 0 and frame 120 will automatically get calculated. So halfway through, at frame 60, it's halfway through the movement. Of course, it also needs to move back, so we're going to go all the way to frame 240 here, and just copy and paste the first keyframe. Then this red line over here, we also need to drag all the way to frame 240 because that shows where the animation stops. So now we can just press play and we can see that our block moves back and forward. You will notice that it has a little bit of easing, as it's called, at the beginning and the end, where it starts moving slower and it comes to a stop a little bit slower than the actual movement speed of the thing. If you press this button here, show the animation keys in a curve editor, we will get a new window opening up. For me, it's only other screen, so I'll just put it in here real quick. And you can see that this is the same information but displayed in a curve. And we can actually mess around with that curve a little bit. So what I'll do now is it will go way past the actual Y value that we've given it, because this curve goes much higher than this keyframe indicates, and then we'll come back. So with just a few keyframes, you can make a lot of very complex movement using curves. And just to show you what that looks like, it moves all the way over there, then it bounces back, and we go back to the start. So in a general sense for what we're doing here, it is often, we don't need to curve sequencer anymore. It's often a good idea to have that little bit of easing at the beginning and the end of your animation, because that's where the player is going to jump on and jump off of the block. You definitely want those moments to be a little bit more accessible, and then when the block is moving, and that's just fine. So now we can say, okay, we're at frame 120, let's select this actor, copy and paste it, move this all the way around here as well, and now we have made a new jump. So now if we start playing the game, you will see that first and foremost we have this little ramp that we made here. Then we've got our jump, which might be, yeah, that's way too big. So in your character movement component, this is not too important for the tutorial we're doing right now, but I do want to show it. We can search up jump, and the jump Z velocity at the moment is 700. Let's make that 1250. And suddenly we'll jump a hell of a lot higher. And now we should be able to make that jump. Barely, but we can make it. Then we have this second block that we have created, which is very bare and very boring at the moment. And then when we get here, we don't see anything. Surely that's just because the block is still moving, right? If we wait here for a second, the block will come back to us. Well, I'm gonna tell you that's definitely not the case. Because what we need to do is, in our animation sequence here, first and foremost, we need to set the looping to looping indefinitely, because we want this thing to move back and forward pretty much forever. And we also need to enable autoplay. Now, if we find that this is too quick, we can always set the play rate to being lower instead of messing around with the keyframes themselves. And we can also set an offset as to how far along it should start in the animation. And now when we get to the end here, we'll see eventually the block. It's a bad block. It's a bad level design because we can't see where we actually end up landing. That's mostly to do with the camera though. So if we just change up the camera a little bit, you will notice that this feels much more like a 2D platformer already, with the way the camera is much farther away. With a platformer, you don't really want the camera too close because you want to be able to look around you. What's happening? Where are the platforms? Where am I in relation to the platform? All that kind of stuff. So this camera is much better set up for the 2D platformer as it is. And now we can see that when the block comes our way, we need to make a little jump, and I just made that jump really, really badly, but things are significantly better. So in this way, you could also animate its rotation, its scale. You can literally animate everything about this. And this can go even further. You can actually use the sequencer to fire off events within actors, if that's something that you want to do. And in a lot of cases, that can come in very, very useful. Though that's a little bit beyond the scope of the basic tutorials that we're doing here. And that is the most basic, easiest, and most often used way that you will end up animating objects within your scene. You can do it purely through programming with blueprint scripts as well. That's overly complicated a lot of the time, though it does have its upside in being able to work quickly around with things. Maybe at some point I'll make a tutorial about how to do this with purely blueprints instead of using sequences, but for the time being right now, just stick with this. And next time we're going to be making some enemies, and it'll really, really start turning into a game.